Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Press Play Action here on Jersey Nerds Productions. My name is Mitchell Lee. I'm with Brandon Tew. And Brandon, it seems like your turn came last week as I was sick at the end of January and it came to you at the end of February. Everybody's getting sick right now, but I'm glad that you're feeling better, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the week that I could not be sick was this week, so I'm fine with last week being a little bit sick. We made a full recovery, and I'm back. We're
Nice. Well, yeah,
we're back.
definitely. This was
Like
the week that you could not be sick for because on the day we're recording this podcast, we're releasing it the following day, and that's when we are going to be watching Dune 2. I've already seen the movie. You have not. I'm going to keep my thoughts in my back pocket. No, I'm just kidding. It's on Twitter. It's on. I love the movie, and I can't wait for when we do get to talk about that one.
yeah,
That's not today, however. That will be we're going to include it in the February recap, which will also include, you're seeing Madam Web tomorrow. You get to
true.
experience
Well,
that.
what a spectacular spectrum of movies.
The spectacular spectrum of movies. If by that you mean spectrum in like 2017 when the Wi-Fi didn't work at all.
I mean, just oh man, like they say, like that quote in The Wire. Put the word out. We're back up. Like that's what Dude 2 is. Put the word out.
It really is,
We're
because
back up.
it's been a tough year. So that's part of the reason why I've been so excited to talk about these movies in the past, because this year has just been atrocious so
Yeah,
far. And we are
rough
going to
start.
end the month of love. Not that you can't love in other months, but February kind of got the trademark as the month of love with Valentine's Day. We're gonna wrap this month up with The Notebook, one of the most popular romance movies of all time, as far as I'm concerned, and Shakespeare in Love, an Oscar winning romance that nobody really talks about anymore, except for a controversy about why it won Best Picture. But we'll talk about both of those and all of that here in a second. We'll start things off with The Notebook. Brandon, I don't know about you. I had heard plenty about this movie because people be talking about it.
Yeah,
It's just one of those movies that comes up quite often. You know, a few people that just love this movie. I wasn't there when it happened, but I remember some lady yelled at Sarah because she hadn't seen The Notebook. It was very strange. Uh, so we finally sat down and we watched this thing. It's directed by Nick Cassavetes, starring Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Gardner, Gina Rowlands, Sam Shepard, Joan Allen, and James Marsden. It was released June 25th, 2004. Now, Brandon, this movie, you wouldn't have expected it given how much this movie is discussed and talked about, just, you know, compared to other movies from 2004. But this movie opened in fourth place and it never got higher than that. Now, it opened up
yeah.
to
The way
13.
this is talked about is like this
You would
movie
think
crushed
that,
the box office.
yeah,
Yeah,
it made $13 million opening weekend, and then it legged out to 81 million, which usually a movie makes about 3 times the amount that it does on opening weekend. So to
yeah.
make, I don't know, 6 times that amount is really good.
Do you think Nicholas Sparks plays a role? Because I think people just like Nicholas Sparks books, movies,
I
anything
think this
about
was
it.
the one. I do think that that had something to do with it, but also that was kind of the first, at least that I know of, the first in that kind of genre of like the Nicholas Sparks. He had a lot of movies that were very similar. He had stuff like, I think it was Nights in Rodanthe, Dear
Yep,
John,
yep.
The Lucky One, which is anyone who hasn't seen that movie because it's terrible.
You're not
Um,
lucky when you watch it. Yeah.
no, it's the kind of
The
movie that
the
makes you
longest
think, huh?
ride. Yeah, the longest
That
ride. The
I haven't
choice.
seen that one.
I
I
I,
haven't
I
seen the
just
choice either.
know I know movies that he has either like wrote the book about it or like he directed or wrote the movie. Yeah, so
But
I
this one,
it's his like own genre. He has like his own genre of like romance movies and like books. It's kind of
this
weird.
this and Dear John are probably like the most popular, not just movies but books as well. Now I'm
Yeah.
sure that someone's going to come and yell at me and tell me that that's not the case, but I don't really keep. I know that the movies, Dear John and The Notebook, are the two that made the most.
Right.
So
I
that's what I'm
mean,
going off of. But it
yeah.
was opening in the summer of 2004. The number one movie that week was the Michael Moore documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, and then in
Mm,
second place, somehow we always end up back with the Wayans. I don't know why, but White Chicks opened up that weekend,
yeah, but
and that
that's
made
like
more.
an okay movie from them
And
actually.
then the next weekend it ran into a juggernaut because before the 4th of July came, Spider-Man 2 came out. So it
Yeah,
ran
fair.
into that, but it was some nice counter programming because a lot of the people that wanted to see Spider-Man 2 weren't going to see The Notebook, so it wasn't really running into that same audience. So it
Yeah,
just
that's
stayed
fair.
in theaters for
Or
a bit and kept making money.
if people were about double features, be like, okay, I'm gonna take my girlfriend to see Spider Man 2, and then she's gonna be like, okay, now I have to see another movie. It's my choice, The Notebook. That would have been a move for a lot of people probably, but yeah, not a lot of crossover audience there with those two movies. That is a juggernaut to go up against, so it makes sense why it
Now,
probably
oh
laid
yeah,
in fourth for a while. Yeah, that's crazy.
2004 had some heavy hitters. I mean, Shrek 2, The Day After Tomorrow, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Spider-Man 2. You had some
Yeah, I was gonna
movies
say
that
Day After Tomorrow was. I mean, that's like the sequel. Was that a sequel? Was that the sequel to?
no, but
That was
people
the
were really
original. Yeah,
into those Roland Emmerich disaster movies in the 90s and the 2000s before people
yeah.
realized that, oh crap, these movies are terrible. Some of
Well,
them are fun. Like
yeah.
I will always stand the movie 2012. That movie's fun.
No,
But
I love 2012, and I think Day After Tomorrow like has its moments, but yeah, that's a. I mean, it's not like high quality. So, but yeah, in terms of box office success, like yeah, but I mean, in terms of the Notebook, it's just weird because people talk about it like it's like this amazing romance movie that made like all this money, like you were saying, and it really didn't make that much
yeah,
money.
like you would think that it made as much as something like Titanic, but it definitely didn't.
Right.
And this movie did something that used to happen, I feel like all the time, but it doesn't happen quite as much anymore. And I'm curious as to why that is. I don't know why that is, but 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. But Cinema Score audiences gave it an A, and everyone that sees this movie seems to love it. But the
Yeah.
critics just didn't really care for it.
Ju-
You
It's
used
because
to see that kind of thing all the time.
yeah. Is it because it was like? Is it because it's a Nicholas Sparks like special? Like, is that like? It's they're like, oh, we're tired of Nicholas Sparks like tricks or like I don't
No,
understand.
because this was
Yeah,
before.
this
This
is
was the
before
beginning
all
of
this stuff.
that.
Yeah, so maybe they were just. I mean, it's a pretty standard romance like story, but I don't know. I mean, the way they tell the story, I think, is unique too. Like the device at which they use to tell the story is pretty cool. So I don't know why critics like wouldn't like it as much as the audience does. I mean, not to give away my score, but it's definitely not a 53% on Rotten Tomatoes type of feeling when I watch this movie.
I have a little something that anyone hearing this would just be like, huh? What? That makes no sense. So the director, uh, Nick Cassavetes, said he wanted someone unknown and not handsome to play the lead role of Noah. So he cast Ryan Gosling. I
Was
mean,
Ryan
great
Gosling
casting
already
job.
famous? Yeah, was he already famous? Like I feel like he was.
He wasn't really famous. This was kind of he had been in some stuff, like he was in Remember the Titans, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't really like a leading man, so to speak. And this was kind of the movie that I don't want to say propelled him because I still think he was kind of like up and coming in the 2000s, and then the 2010s really,
Push him.
vaulted him to where he is now. but this was definitely the launching point for Ryan Gosling getting more leading roles and stuff like Fracture or Half Nelson or uh, Blue Valentine in 2010 and getting
Uh,
more stuff.
this isn't hate on Gosling because he's a very gorgeous man.
How dare you?
Um, yeah, he looks really good, but I will say this is like his awkward years when he didn't look as good,
Man, I'm with you. I think that
and
he
so
looks a
maybe
lot
that's
better.
what I actually kind of like what the director. I mean, if that's what you're saying, like you
He's
got an awkward
definitely
looking guy.
now. I wouldn't go necessarily that far, but if you were to see Ryan Gosling 10 years from when this movie came out,
Yeah,
you're
it's
definitely
totally
like, all
different.
right, he's aged. He looks a lot better now than like he looked a lot better in his 30s and 40s than he did in his 20s, which I guess that's just Hollywood. But
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
But
and you could
I
make the
guess if
same
you're
case for Rachel McAdams. I mean,
yeah,
Rachel McAdams. This was
both
a
of them.
a big time for Rachel McAdams too because uh she was in Mean Girls a few
Yeah,
months before this came out. So
she had to
this
be
was
the
around
driving
the
force of this movie. Like, go see Rachel McAdams because you just saw her in Mean Girls, like
yeah,
type
because
of.
everyone loved Mean Girls, and then this came out. So I think a lot of that audience was like, "All right, I really liked her as Regina George. She stole the show there. Let me go check this out." And then, I mean, these two are both still putting out great work to this day.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting casting, like pairing together in terms of like their romance together, and yeah, I think they're both in like they are very beautiful looking people, but they're in awkward years. Are they are like the casting or like the makeup, whatever they were able to do, they were able to make them look younger, but then like when you get deeper into the movie and you see them older, it kind of like works. Like they weren't like in such an awkward stage where you couldn't like see them passing for 35, 45, but you also can't see them passing for like 17. Like it kind of worked on both levels. So yeah, really like that part of the casting, and I think they both make the movie, to be honest, because I really liked how, like I said, I really like how they told the story, and we can get more into like plot and like what they exactly do. But
I've
the
been
movie doesn't
struggling.
work. Yeah, the movie doesn't work with Gosling and McAdams. With the, like, it doesn't work unless they work. So yeah,
No, it absolutely has to, as it is for any romance, but particularly something like this where it's more of a romantic drama than it
yeah,
is a comedy. You absolutely have to buy that these two are in love and they do have that chemistry. And Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams absolutely have that. I've been struggling with trying to figure out how to talk about this movie because there's two different kind of parts to it. There's this
yeah,
part that takes place at a nursing home where this older man is coming in and he's helping out this elderly woman who is having she's in a nursing home and you don't really know what the issue is with her at first, but then you slowly begin to find out that she's having issues with her memory, and he comes in and kind of just like reads to her so that she has something to think about, and it kind of helps jog her memory with some things. And then it cuts to a different place in time with Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, and they're in South Carolina because all of Nicholas Sparks' movies take place somewhere in the Carolinas. I don't know how many of these movies that you've seen, Brandon, but they're all either in North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe there's one in
yeah.
Virginia or Georgia, but they're all kind of in that area, usually by the beach. But this one, I don't think is, I don't
Outer
think it's by the
Banks.
beach. Yeah, something like that. And you've got this guy Noah, who's played by Ryan Gosling, and he sees this woman played by Rachel McAdams named Allie, and he's like, I gotta have some of that. And he jumps on this Ferris wheel, which just hurt my shoulder looking at. Uh, and he
Crazy stunt.
basically, yeah, he's basically like hanging on to this Ferris wheel, and he's like, "I'll let go if you don't go out with me." Which
What a
honestly,
sociopathic move to do.
If I
Yeah.
was Rachel McAdams, that would be a red flag to me, not necessarily a turn on, but I guess when you look like Ryan
I
Gosling,
think
you
it
can get
was a
away with a
red
lot.
flag to be honest with you, because he got in the middle of these two that were like dating, like they were on like a date, I guess, at the fair. He just sits in between them, and he's like, "Hi, my name's Noah," and the guy's like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "I'm on a date here. Like, what do you like, get out of here?" Like, oh, it's just too good. And yeah, he basically threatens her, which is very sociopathic of him. So yeah, great,
Nah, man,
great
it's romantic.
intro.
You've never done that before?
Not to that. I mean, jeez. I mean, hanging like
That
100 feet off the. That's just kind of crazy to me. I don't understand it, but yeah, that's. I mean, that Ferris wheel, like that was a big Ferris wheel to put it. That is what I was kind of getting at. That was
and
yeah,
no, he if he had fallen from that, like goodbye. It's done. He's not just breaking some legs.
yeah, yeah. So good for
But
him. But yeah, I
Allie
mean,
Allie
he
immediately says,
secured the date. Yeah, he secured the date. Good for him.
yeah, Allie just, hearts in the eyes. I gotta actually no, it wasn't quite that sudden. At first, she's kind of reluctant to it, but she kind of plays along with it because this guy might kill himself and everybody in the town if he doesn't get to go on a date with me. So I gotta go with it. God, being a woman is really difficult. Um,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
but they do spend more time together, and he kind of talks about the things that he wants to do, and they live two different lives. He's got no money, but he has this house that he wants to build. Like he has the land, and he wants to build this house, and she has her entire life basically planned out for her. We've seen this kind of story a billion times before.
Right.
Maybe this is, I don't want to say the originator of that kind of thing because it's not, but it is definitely playing off a template that a lot of other movies would use in the 2000s,
Oh,
2010s.
Shakespeare's the originator of anything like this.
Well, yeah, I guess
But
that's true, and we'll get to that later. That's a good
right.
point.
But yes, this is like textbook romantic drama. You know, rich rich person, poor person, separate lives. Oh no, their parents don't approve. And
That's
yeah.
the thing. Her parents don't approve. Uh, After he takes her to the house that he wants to build, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that," and she's like, "I'm gonna, sit on your face." And they spend the night together in the house in the biblical sense. And her parents are like, "Hey, it's 2 o'clock. You better be home." And all hell breaks loose. They're like, "You're not going to see that guy again. It's done. It's over. This poor boy isn't for you. You need to be with a rich man that can take care of you." And then that's just kind of what happens. They argue about it, but uh,
She says some
I,
mean stuff. He says some mean stuff.
yeah. And at the end, well, not at the end, but at the end of that particular argument, she goes to, I don't remember what school it was, but there's some school that she was going to go to in
In New York. Yeah, in New York. Yeah.
was it in New York?
Yeah,
I
it was
think
New
it
York.
was. Oh, but they went back to they lived in a different part of, they lived in Charleston, but
Yep.
they were kind of at like their summer house or something like that.
Hmm.
And so she goes back, and Noah's too late. Allie's already out of town, and I feel like kind of stopping there and saving the rest for spoilers because it does go into a few different directions after that
Deep.
with the older couple and
Yep.
Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams. Rachel McAdams does end up kind of uh, being with James Marsden, and that's something that happens. Uh, I'll say that for one, the chemistry is something that absolutely had to be there, and it was. But at the same time, I really felt both of their like inability to move on, I guess.
Mm.
Because Rachel McAdams, when she's in a different situation, she kind of has this guilt of I should be really enjoying this, and part of me really is. But the second that she hears anything about Noah, it's just like her husband doesn't even exist, and that's kind of also a red flag, but also kind of how you know that you're in a situation that maybe you shouldn't be in.
Yeah, I mean, it just yeah, it kind of is what it is. Like I don't condone what what happens later on in the movie, but it is very odd the twist and turns it takes, and the mother is involved, and yeah, it's just very yeah, like you said, not being able to move on from someone who you haven't seen in, I mean, how many years?
I don't think they did a very good time with the whole passage of time.
I just think it was hard to like do that. To be quite honest
Yeah,
with you, I mean, World War II was thrown in there, which you know, I mean, that was kind of like a little.
kind
I
of
mean,
came
yeah,
right out of nowhere.
I mean, but it kind of makes sense if like they're in Seabrook in 1938, and then the the war happens in 1942 or 43, and like they do the call to
Oh, you know
arms.
what?
Like,
It adds
yeah,
up
it
time
makes sense,
period
but
wise. I'm not
yeah,
saying that. It just like in the story, it just kind of like seemed to be something that was in there for like 5 minutes, and then all right, back to your regularly scheduled
yeah. I
program.
wonder if in the book it's like more of a substantial plot, or like 45 pages, 40 pages of like material rather than like here's 5 minutes of like, oh, I went to you know I went to North Africa, then Europe. My buddy died in combat, like, but I come back, like it's just whatever. And then like she joins the army as like a nurse, and then it kind of just like yeah. And I guess the one thing we can talk about is she kind of meets her husband as he's like also in the military at
Yeah,
that
he's
point when
wounded.
yep, but he recovers, and because it's such a great way to meet someone is like after I recover from these horrific injuries, will you go on a date with me? It's such a great pickup line, and it
Well,
actually works.
you know who the director originally wanted to play the role of that James Marsden ultimately had.
Ooh,
He wanted Bradley Cooper.
oh, that would have worked too.
Yeah, and I think that would have worked as well. But he's not someone that gets a whole lot to do in this movie necessarily. And I thought that his character, the one thing that I liked about James Marsden's character is usually in movies like this, they go refresh that. They go the route of Titanic, where they just make the guy, and it kind of works for Billy Zane in Titanic, where he's just this complete ass. But they kind of go like just make him like a straight up villain, like killing puppies or whatever, like shooting ducks in the head, something.
They don't really do
But
that with Lon. Yeah, they don't do that with Lon.
they don't do that. Now, I think that they go a little bit too far in the other direction, where I think he's a little bit too much of a pushover. But at the same time, I kind of just appreciated the fact that they didn't make him just a complete,
Like,
villain.
oh, here's villain, husband against former lover Ryan got like Noah. Like here's
Like it would have been
villain Lon
it
versus
would have been
Noah. Yeah.
so easy to make him like abusive or something like that. So it's like you're rooting for
Yeah, he's
Ryan
not really a
Gosling because
bad
this
guy.
guy's the worst person ever. They don't
Right.
really do that, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, because then it does make the decision that I guess we're getting too far in the weeds, but yeah, the decision is more impactful in my opinion because it's basically two
Yeah,
good guys. Yeah.
the
So
third act is definitely more. You feel it a little bit more because of that, but also at the same time, the third act has some stuff with the older couple that I
just
liked.
steals the movie, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I'm not necessarily there with you on that because I liked it, but I also could have used a little less of it if that makes any sense. I think they spent a
That's
lot
fair.
of time with it at the end, and it kind of becomes the primary story at the end of the
Right.
movie. And I think that was the right decision, but I could have used maybe 5-10 minutes shaved off at the end. This could have been an hour 50 as opposed to 2 hours, and I think it would have had a much tighter,
Just take out like
stronger
one or
movie.
two scenes. I do
Yeah,
think there's a couple of scenes that you have to keep in, but maybe just tighten up. Even if you kept all the scenes in, maybe just tighten up the scenes, because there's some scenes where it kind of lingers a little bit longer. But at
I
the
gotta
end of the
ask you.
day, yeah,
I
go
gotta
ahead.
ask you. Did you cry?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard not to cry when you're watching this, but maybe I'm just soft. I don't know. I mean, not that crying makes you softer, but you know what I mean. Maybe
No,
maybe
I
I just
totally
cry
support
more.
that, but I expected to, and I got close, but I didn't. And
Yeah,
everyone was like, "Oh, this movie's gonna make you cry." And I maybe if I hadn't gone in with that expectation, or maybe I'm just a heartless bastard because The Green Mile didn't make me cry, and everyone said that was going to. But again, I also like kind of knew what was coming because I had heard about it before, so
right.
it wasn't a surprise to me, and that might have had a little something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
Sixth
this.
Sense, The Sixth Sense got me, and
Yeah,
this didn't, which I would have never expected. The scene in
yeah,
the car with Haley Joel Osment got me in The Sixth Sense, but this couldn't quite get there.
yeah. There was two scenes where I was like, "Wow, that's like really tough to watch," and they involved the old couple. It wasn't really like Noah and
Mhm.
Allie, like Ryan Gosling and McAdams
I
characters.
think
It
that's
was
what
the
gets
older
most
couple.
people. There was a scene where I was like, "Damn it. Oh god." And we'll get to that in the spoilers. But they also did a really good job of it's on the damn poster. I'm not really spoiling anything for anybody. When Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams do eventually see each other after all that time, I don't think they did a good job of the passage of time as far as the moments in between. But I do think you definitely felt that we haven't seen each other in years, and it is kind of awkward to start, but we could pick things right back up type of deal. I think that that's a feeling that you just either nail it or you don't, and this movie had it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, they really nailed that part of it. Um, yeah, I like this movie a lot. Like, not enough to maybe overtake some movies on this reviews we're doing, but I gotta say this is probably one of the better movies I've seen in the month. So yeah, I really like this movie.
It's certainly better than anything in theaters right now before Dune 2 comes out.
Yeah, fair.
So if they were to, they should do some sort of re-release or something like that around Valentine's Day. I do think you'd get people to come and check it out the way that they kind of do for Love Actually and Die Hard around Christmas. If you release this movie around Valentine's Day, you'd get some people in the seats.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think you'd sell out the
especially
showings,
in
to be honest.
especially in the area like North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, where these movies take place. I definitely think that you'd have a good audience there. And before we give our grades, I do want to get into something just real quick because I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular podcast is not just to talk about movies from the past, but to kind of uh, maybe open the eyes of some people that maybe haven't seen some sort of stuff that's considered either classics or more like hidden gems type things. For a long time, when I was in high school or even early college, I only kind of watched like one type of movie, but then I was like, all right, let's check out some romance stuff. Let's check out some horror. And then I kind of began to like a lot of different things from that genre. Give other things in genres that you're not necessarily the biggest fan of a chance. Because even if it is like, for example, horror, if you're not a big horror person, but you know that you're just not kind of into gory stuff, there's all sorts of things that you can find that don't fit that aren't gory.
That aren't Saul.
Exactly, yeah. If you don't think that you're a big fan of like romance type movies, find something like this that is it's not it is kind of schmaltzy and that kind of thing, but it's well acted, it's well directed, and it actually makes you feel the feelings that they're going for. So just because it's a Nicholas Sparks movie and
Right.
it's a quote unquote chick flick doesn't mean that you won't like it if you're a guy and give it a shot. You might end up really enjoying it. And I know a lot of straight white dudes that are like, yeah, no, I like The Notebook, kind of saying that begrudgingly. Own it.
No, I like The Notebook a lot. Yeah, I'm with you. Like where the crawdad sings, like go see that. Like
That
yeah,
was the same thing, kind of coastal, I think North Carolina.
Outer
Yeah.
Banks stuff. Yeah,
It's
so,
definitely not a romance movie. It's more of like a crime type of thing.
right.
But
But
I was actually thinking of that about 10 minutes ago. I just
I
couldn't think of
was
a place
too. Yeah,
to bring it
but
up.
yeah, like if you like that type of movie, like go see that. Like I just like open yourself to more genres, and like I think people would appreciate um movies more in general if you open yourself up to more genres rather than just going like, oh well, I really like superhero movies. I'm only going to see superhero movies. Oh, I really like crime, crime dramas. I'm only going to watch crime like that. Like open yourself up to a little bit more. I mean, animation is even like,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm all for it. Like, go watch more animation stuff. So yeah, definitely. I think I'm ready to get into grades if you are.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give this one an A minus 88.9. And I feel like it's on the same level as you, probably.
Brandon. Now, we don't differ on grades all too much. I am glad that you gave American Beauty an A plus, so that we did have something a little bit different. I'm also at an A minus, but I am on the lower end. I am
Okay.
at a 38, just 38, even 38.00. Just kind of lower middle A minus. It's a movie that I really like. I don't know how much I'm going to rewatch it necessarily, but I could see myself coming back to it.
Yeah, I don't think this is like a full blown rewatch for me. Like I'm gonna rewatch it like tomorrow or a week from now, 2 months from now. But I
Watch
do
it every
think
day.
I will see this at some point again, and I'll be like, oh, I still like this movie. Still makes me feel things. I still cry probably at the same part I cried at this time watching it. So I really like this movie a lot. And like I just think Gosling and McAdams work. Whether the way they get to like the date is kind of a little bit out there, but once they go on that date together, you can see the connection between the two, and that's really what drives the movie. And then it's just really a story about like love and two people loving each other through thick and thin, basically.
All right, before we transition into Shakespeare in Love, I got a trivia question for you, Brandon.
Yeah, what's up?
This movie came out in 2004. What was the highest grossing movie of 2004, Brandon?
Was it Shrek 2?
It was Shrek 2. I
Okay,
thought
yeah.
Spider Man 2 would trip you up, but no, it was Shrek 2.
Yeah, that makes sense though because Shrek was so awesome that everyone was probably like, "Oh, we need to go see this."
Shrek 2 was a phenomenon, man. I can't wait till we
Yeah,
eventually get to talk about like DreamWorks movies. Not all of them. Like I can wait to talk about like Shrek the Third, but stuff like Shrek 2, Puss in Boots 2, the How to Train Your Dragon movies, I am looking forward to talking about that stuff. But
yeah,
we're not doing it right now. We're going to talk about the movie that won Best Picture at the 1990, technically 1999, but for the film year of 1998 Oscars, Shakespeare in Love, directed by John Madden, Brandon. Not that
that's what I'm at.
not
Yeah,
that no, not that John Madden.
not the man who gave us the great football games, the video games. Not
Yeah,
that.
no. Although that would be very cool if I found out that this movie was directed by John Madden. That would be interesting. Uh,
Yeah,
Starring a lot of people: Gwyneth Paltrow, Joseph Fiennes, Jeffrey Rush, Colin Firth, Ben Affleck, Judi Dench, Imelda Staunton, Tom Wilkinson. There's a lot of people in this movie. It's a big ensemble cast. It was released December 11th, 1998. And this was another one of those type of movies that, because it generated so much awards hype, they kind of opened it up in bigger cities and only bigger cities, and then kind of slowly released it wider. And it never got higher than third at the box office, but it made $100 million domestically, $289 million worldwide on a $25 million budget. So it was a very big success.
Feels like it took the American Fiction route that we kind of saw earlier this year.
Oh, okay, American Fiction made like 20 million total. This was like the Black Swan type thing where
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
it
sense.
slowly just it was never the top movie, but it just kind of kept being in the top 5
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah, I see
eventually
what you mean.
made its way to being a
I
really big
I
success.
guess American Fiction didn't get released enough widely for it to make any money really.
Out of
But
the
yeah,
stuff this year that's been the kind of awards type thing, Poor Things would be the one that's done the best, and it's kind of stuck around more in the top 10 than the top 5 like
yeah,
this was. And this movie was a not just a big success at the box office, but it was also a big success at the Oscars, where it won Best Picture over the favorite being Saving Private Ryan. Gwyneth Paltrow won Best Actress for that for her performance as Viola, and the one that makes it won Best Original Screenplay, but Judi Dench won Best Supporting Actress, and it's kind of a famous win because she's only in the movie for like 9 minutes. It's like one of the like lowest.
she's the queen, right?
Yeah, she's Queen Elizabeth the
Okay.
First.
Well, that kind of makes sense to be honest. If not to
You
give
know
away the
what's
movie,
funny?
but
You
she's
know,
awesome when
you
she's
know
on
what's
screen.
funny? She's not the only person that was nominated for playing Queen Elizabeth the First that year,
That's
because
amazing.
Kate Blanchett played in Elizabeth a younger version of that character and was nominated for Best Actress and was seen as Gwyneth Paltrow's biggest competition for that role. So we could have very well had two actresses winning the Oscar
For
playing the
yeah,
exact same character that
supporting and
year.
best the same character. Yeah. That
Yeah,
that's definitely happened before, right? Or like
I
that's
I can't think of it. I mean, you had
I'm trying
two
to think of like
Abraham Lincoln movies in 2012, but Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter was not represented at the Oscars.
yeah, that's fair. Well, maybe more. I was thinking like because I think I saw a tweet about this. Like, there are people who have won like The Godfather like won a bunch of awards and people won like Best Actor, but then like the younger version of the character, they also won like Best Supporting Actor like years later in like Godfather 2 or something. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of is like the same character like wins different awards from different people like portraying it. Um I mean, I guess the Joker falls in that category, right? Like multiple people have won awards for playing the Joker,
But
but
not the
it's really
same
not the
year.
same as like yeah, not the same year. That's like wild to me. Maybe people just love Queen Elizabeth and like queens in England and what I mean, maybe that's what it is. Like people just love watching anything to do with Queen Elizabeth. But Judy Dench, that makes a lot of sense, even though she's only in the movie for like 10 minutes. Now I think about it, like she's really
I
good in the movie.
That was a very hotly contested Oscar category that year. I think Kathy Bates for Primary Colors and Lynn Redgrave for Gods and Monsters, two movies I have not seen,
Yeah,
but they were the other ones that were. I think Kathy Bates was the favorite, if I'm not
they were almost
mistaken.
like, how did Kathy Bates not win? Yeah, yeah.
But Kathy Bates won a few years earlier for Misery, and sometimes they just don't want to give a performer
It's
too
it's
many
hard
Oscars.
to pull off the Tom Hanks. It's
I
hard to pull
hate
off
when
the
they.
Tom
Oh, it's
Hanks.
very difficult. They don't like to do it. I hate that. If someone gives the best performance 5 years in a row, they should have 5 Oscars 5 years in a row. But it doesn't really work like that. It's a very political thing, and maybe no better example of that than Shakespeare in Love winning Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan. And we got to talk about that fat piece of shit rotting away in prison, Harvey Weinstein again. Uh, where I can say a billion terrible things about him, and I'd love to because I hate that dude, but he was kind of the Oscar whisperer of sorts. He was pulling all the strings, shaking all the right hands, kissing all the right babies, and, you know, trying to get big campaigns for the movies that he produced around Oscar season. And famously went around kind of telling people, hey, Saving Private Ryan, you can vote for the first 10 minutes of that movie, but kind of what happens after that. And I would strongly disagree, but enough people kind of bought into it, listened to him, heard him out, that Shakespeare in Love
Wow.
won Best Picture, and it's considered to be one of the biggest upsets. And they surveyed a bunch of people that voted that year that said, "Yeah, I should have voted for Saving Private Ryan. That was a mistake."
I mean, let's not mix words here. Like sometimes you buy Oscars, and I feel like this one was probably bought in terms of Best Picture.
Well, he did the same thing 12 years
Was
later. Everyone expected The Social Network to win Best Picture in 2010, and what goes home with the top prize? Weinstein produced The King's Speech.
Yeah, and
And
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. They're all like money behind it, campaigns behind it. But I mean, I almost feel like with those two movies in particular, overtaking the favorite, there's a lot of money being pushed behind one instead of the other, and it just happens. Not right or wrong, but maybe we shouldn't take everything to heart when it's like, oh well, it won an Oscar Best Picture nomination, or like it won an Oscar Best Picture, because like that doesn't always mean that it was the best movie of that year.
mhm. Well, I'll go ahead and just dive into it. I did really like this movie. Do I think that it's a movie? I don't even think this is a Best Picture nominated caliber movie for me personally.
I know that's where I'm like, how did this win Best Picture? Like I don't even think it's like I think it's an enjoyable movie. I think it's really fun. I think it's a good movie. But I just where is it?
It's
I
kind
agree
of
with
it's kind of a disposable crowd pleaser type of thing for me. It's a movie that I would recommend to like my mom or my grandma, but it's I'll go ahead and get into the plot. It's about William Shakespeare. Now this is kind of like a it's not based on any story that we know of. It's kind of just a what if Shakespeare was doing this, that, and the other. Uh, but it's about William
it.
Shakespeare, and he's a
Very plausible that Shakespeare was doing his thing in
yeah.
this time. But yeah, go ahead.
It's about this playwright William Shakespeare, played by Joseph Fiennes, who, if that last name sounds familiar, that's Ralph Fiennes' brother or cousin. I know that they're related. Obviously, they look very, very similar. Um, and he's kind of fallen in love with Viola, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, and Gwyneth Paltrow is uh, kind of a child of. Is it a child of royalty or just a child of money?
Money more than royalty.
Okay, yeah, no, it is money because she has this guy played by Colin Firth, who is is he a lord?
He's either a lord or a duke,
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
Lord Wessex, and he comes in like, "Hey, I've pretty much bought your hand in marriage," but she's like, "Yeah, but I'm in love with William Shakespeare. I'm kind of with him."
didn't
Meanwhile,
say that to him. She didn't really
meanwhile
say that to him.
she is dressing. She's doing the whole Mulan thing. It was very popular in 1998 for girls to dress up like guys. Mulan was doing it, and Gwyneth Paltrow was doing it in Shakespeare in Love, where she's dressing
Uh,
up like a dude because at the time women weren't allowed on the stage in plays, and she
it
really
was an
wanted to act.
abomination. It was yeah. It
I
was
thought that was I didn't know that that was a thing.
no yeah
Was it a
no
thing?
no. That's been a thing. That was a thing for a while. Like it happened with the
Huh?
Romans, and it happened with the Greeks, and that just continued on and
Good
on.
lord, women really weren't allowed to do anything back then.
Um, well, actually, I'm not sure if it was the Roman and Greeks. The Romans and Greeks might not have had rules like that, but I do know that
But this is
men portrayed women in plays for a while before someone broke that barrier.
but this is late 16th century England here.
Oh, that definitely was happening in late 16th century England,
Yeah.
no doubt. Yeah, they
But
have
what
that right. That happens.
and they're trying to put on a play of Romeo and Juliet while all this
Which
is going on.
it's so
Jeffrey
funny.
Rush Jeffrey Rush is this guy that's kind of like in debt to the theater owner,
Yep.
and they're trying to make this play work. And there's this that stuff with Colin Firth going on, and Gwyneth Paltrow's got to kind of keep the fact that she's who she is a secret. Meanwhile, Shakespeare knows, and they spend like a good third of the movie just having sex. Like, I was
I wouldn't
watching
go
this
that far. I
movie,
would say a quarter, but yeah, that's fair.
man. I would. Sarah and I kind of looked at each other at one point in the movie, and we were just like, do they like even know each other at all, or do they just like have sex? Is that
Nah,
all they do?
it's Shakespeare in love, man. He's
No,
in love.
it's Shakespeare in that ass. There's no love going on here.
I will say they he sees her at a ball, and he goes to his friend because his friend's like playing at the ball, like playing the music for the like reception or whatever, and he goes like, "Who is that?" Like, and he says it in a way more like Shakespearean way, but he goes, "Oh, that's
Who
Viola."
art thou,
Like,
ass? Like
yeah,
something like that.
he's like, "Oh, that's Viola. You'll never like, you know, get her. Like, you'll never be able to get her because she's, you know, she's going to marry Lord Wessex." And he's like, "Nah." He's like, "F that." He's like, "I'm about to stalk across the room and meet up with her." And she sees him and she goes, "Oh, Master Shakespeare." And so she obviously like knows who he is, but he didn't know who she was. It's like very weird. I
Can I
don't
ask
quite
you
get it.
something? Because
Go
I
ahead.
you do a very good job, and I need to start doing this the way that you do it. Sometimes I'll watch these movies like 2 weeks before we talk about them, whereas you
Yeah.
watch them like 2 minutes before we start talking
Yeah,
about
I
it. You're
did
like, oh,
watch this last night.
it's fresh as hell. Did he not know that that was her when she's like got that little fake mustache going and her hair is kind of short? Did he
Oh,
not know that that was?
when she's Master Kent or when
Well,
she's
yeah, when
playing
she's
Kent.
Thomas Kent.
Yeah,
Did he not
I
know?
think he knows. I think there's a point where he like knows.
Because I kind of went back and forth like, okay, did he
No, he
know? Did he
knows.
not
He
know?
knows.
Was he just kind of playing along? Like,
Because I think he writes her a letter like for her, and then she reads it, and she's like, "Oh my god, he like knows it's me or whatever." And then like, yeah, and I mean, look. I'm not here to bash Lord Wessex. Like, he's not a good dude, but also, is my man that like dense? He like knew that she was like sleeping with someone else, but he
I
like couldn't put it together that it was like Shakespeare. Like,
I
she's
do
at the
think that,
theater like every day. Like,
yeah,
what is
I
she? What do you think? Like, I
I
don't know.
kind of thought that everyone in this movie was really stupid for a good chunk of it. Like, people are really dumb in this. Uh,
Yeah, fair.
I would say with the exception of Shakespeare, but there are some times where I'm like, nah, he's kind of dumb too. Uh, I like there's a part of this movie where Colin Firth and Shakespeare are in a room, and he's like, "What's your name?" And he says someone else's name, like one of his biggest competitors as far as playwrights goes. And then Colin Firth goes after he kind of finds out that she's been sleeping around with Shakespeare, and he kills that dude. And I'm like, you saw what he looked like. Did at no point when you were killing the other dude were you like, huh,
Oh, that's
you
not the
look a
same
little
guy.
different today?
Yeah, that's not the same dude. Yeah. I
It
just
was very
also
strange.
I'm not gonna pretend like William Shakespeare was the biggest name around by that point because I think this is like the idea is like this is his first like big play. It's like his big break. Romeo and Juliet's his big break. So not everyone knows who he is, but the fact that she knows who he is, but like Colin Firth like has no idea who he is, and then like other people around town are like, "Oh yeah, Shakespeare." Like, yeah, you have you run into Shakespeare? And like Colin Firth's character is like runs into him and like doesn't know it's Shakespeare. I just find that hard to believe, but maybe it's because Colin Firth is uncultured and he just he doesn't He doesn't go to the theater all the time, so he doesn't know who the playwrights are. But I just find that hard to believe. I'm with you. I don't know how you kill a guy who doesn't look anything like the guy that you were supposed to be killing.
Sometimes the movie felt a little bit too costumey to me, which
Yeah,
I
that's
was
fair.
willing to give it a pass when it
It's
was like
also 16th
costume
century
when it was
England, so
costumes for the stage.
yeah,
But
fair.
Colin Firth's character has this stupid ass earring.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Mitchell, in 16th century England, it was all about like dressing up
It was all
and
about
like,
looking stupid.
yeah, looking the part. So if that meant wearing stupid earrings, like that's kind of what you had to do. So I don't know, but
Let's talk
yeah, I'm
about
kind
the
of with
actors
you.
in this thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gwyneth
Cause
Paltrow's the big star in this one. This was her Oscar-winning turn, and I can't say anything about the other nominees that year. Obviously, Kate Blanchett, probably the one that was her biggest competition. And Elizabeth, haven't seen that, so I can't say who I thought
that seems like,
would
isn't that
win.
a really good movie? Like people talk very highly of that movie, right?
Actually, I don't. Maybe it's because they actually made a sequel to that, which you never usually see sequels to
A
movies.
sequel to
Yeah,
Queen Elizabeth biopic? That is
exactly.
crazy.
Um,
To be fair, if there was anyone you were gonna biopic a sequel to, like if you're gonna do like this is her early years, this is her later years, it
she
would be
was
Queen
nominated for
Elizabeth.
both movies, but the second one was just kind of like she's good in it, but the rest of the movie sucks. But the
Fair.
first one was seen as pretty good. I thought Gwyneth Paltrow was really good in this, but I don't
Yeah.
think that she was take home the golden statue good.
Yeah, but I guess you got to think about like what her competition was, but I
I
do think
can't
she was
say.
good. Yeah, I do think she was good. Um a lot
I
of
wish
this
she
movie
would do
just
more dramas. I don't see her in too much lately.
yeah.
She's too busy concerned about like her vagina candles and not really acting in much. You know it.
I mean, she can do whatever she wants. She has enough
She
money.
can.
I mean, I'm
Doesn't
not
mean
gonna
she
judge
should.
her. Yeah, I'm not gonna
I'll
judge her.
judge the hell out of her.
I just
She named
I'm
her
more
her kid Apple and sells vagina candles. Yeah, I'll judge her.
Apple Paltrow. That's not a bad name. I like that
N-
name.
Come on, that's not a
Apple
bad
Paltrow.
name.
I mean, it would be. I mean, it would be better if it was like. I mean, at least it's not like apple butter or like
Apple butter. You're
apple
right.
cinnamon.
It
Like
is
I
better than
mean, what do
apple
you
butter
want?
or apple cinnamon. Brandon always
Yeah, I
keeping
mean,
things in
I
perspective.
mean, you got to keep it in perspective. But at the end of the day, like I mean, when she's in stuff, she's good, and I mean, she's good in this, like you said. I get the vibe from this movie, Mitchell. Like, this is like an above average movie. It's enjoyable, but like this movie would never make like a top 15 or top 10 on like most years for me. Like, I don't think this movie is like this Oscar like winning movie, and maybe I'm just missing
No,
something.
I'm with you on that
Cause,
because
cause look, I have a bunch of movies that I'm like, oh, that movie, like I have no idea why it's getting Oscar buzz or like, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I can kind of see it. Like Shape of Water, like I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. I didn't, but
I'm lower on
at
that
the end
movie
of
than
the
you.
day, no, sure, but at the end of the day, like I understand like why that might get like Oscar push or like an Oscar buzz. Like this one, I really don't. I really just don't get it because you kind of put the plot well. Like they don't really do much together and they're kind of just in love and they just have sex all the time and then like the movie is just like involved around this like play of Romeo and Juliet and I don't really know what's going on to like make it an Oscar movie, but go ahead. I mean,
Well,
what about
it's
Joseph? Like what about Shakespeare? Like I think he was fine. I think he was good.
I think he was very inconsistent to me because there were some scenes where I'm like, this guy is really doing a great job. And then there are
Yeah.
other scenes, I think, where he has to be a little bit more, when he's more casual, I liked him. But when he has to really turn up the juice dramatically,
Mm.
I didn't think he had it.
You know who my favorite character was?
I wonder if it's the same one
Outside
as
of
mine.
Judy Dench, and this isn't because I really like this actor.
I think
It
we have the
was
same guy. Let's say it on a count of three. Three,
go ahead,
2, 1. Ben
Ben Affleck.
Affleck.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
because
guy was awesome.
I saw the cast and I'm like, the hell is Ben Affleck doing in here? But I kind of had the same reaction at first when I saw the previews for The Last Duel. And then I watched The Last Duel, and I'm like, Ben Affleck might be the best one in here aside from Jodie Comer. And
Right.
in this movie, Ben Affleck is just like, he's really funny. He's got a good sense of humor. You can tell that he's like the actor that thinks a little bit more highly of himself than he probably should,
Oh, what?
but
But at the end of the day, like it
he's a good
feels like he's
actor.
the yeah, it feels like he's the best actor in general. He's the best actor in the play like Spear like, at the theater, oh, like Ben Affleck's character is back to like perform in Shakespeare's like new play, and then he gives him like such a ridiculous role. He's like, oh, it's Mercutio in Mercutio, and then he changes the title of the play, and he's like, actually, the play isn't Mercutio, and like Mercutio's character is like
Yeah,
very
he dies
small
halfway
role.
through.
Yeah, but he's like he dies such a passionate death, and like Ben Affleck's character like finally catches on, and he's like, "You are such an ass." Like, I mean, how dare you like get me to play this like small role? But then
I
my
loved
favorite
it.
line in the whole movie, my favorite line in the whole movie is when he goes to Shakespeare and he's like, "Oh, by the way, like the play's good, like, but you're still full of shit." And then he goes, "By the way, I would call it Romeo and Juliet, just a suggestion." And
Mhm.
it like takes off. It's like, yeah, that's you know what? That's a great idea, Will. Thank you for letting me for telling me that. I appreciate it. Like I just thought it was so funny. But yeah, I think he's my favorite part of this movie. I mean, I I like Jeffrey Rush's character, like the intro, the opening scene of like Rush's character and like the I guess the
It's not
boss
how I
man.
expected this movie to
Yeah,
open.
not how I expected it to open.
And I think it doesn't fit the tone of the movie at all.
It doesn't, but I almost don't hate that if it makes sense.
Yeah.
I almost like kind of appreciate it more. Because it's like kind of just like a weird opening, and then it's like, oh, by the way, and then here's Shakespeare in Love. And like Tom Wilkinson's character is fine.
I liked him too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like good performances, but there's no like great performances outside of Judy Dench. And look, I mean, we can get to it later with spoilers, but she is the best part on the screen when she actually comes on the screen, in
I
my
don't know
opinion.
about that. I think she was number 3 for me behind Gwyneth Paltrow and Ben Affleck. I
Yeah,
thought
fair.
she was really good, but again, also, she's in the movie for probably less than 10 minutes. I just don't know if she was good enough in that 10 minutes to take home an Oscar.
So you're saying it's not a Robert Downey Jr. situation?
Well, Robert Downey
With
Jr. had more time in Oppenheimer, and also that movie
Sure,
is 3 hours long, whereas this is just two. So
but if you
if
think
it
about
seems like
percentages, it's
he's yeah.
probably if you think about percentages, it's probably similar in percentage
Yeah, but
wise.
percentage of a 3 hour movie is still like a lot more minutes of time. You can make a bigger impact than Judi Dench is definitely. I mean, yeah, she won Best Supporting Actress. I'm saying she's a supporting character. Clearly, she is, but she maybe gets like the seventh or eighth most screen time. I mean, Imelda Staunton might have more screen time than her in this movie, and
Yeah, that's a fair point.
no one's talking about her. And I definitely think Judi Dench makes more of an impact. But I left this movie kind of how I expected to leave this movie. I didn't
Mm,
think that I was going to love it, but I wanted to. I was like, all right, Best Picture winner 1998. Let's go. At least be on the Best Picture nominee level of something from this year, American fiction type of thing, where maybe you're not making my top 10 of a year, but you're getting close.
Poor
And,
things.
well, Poor Things was a top 10 movie for me
Right,
personally, but this
but
was
you know, be
something,
in that realm, like be around there.
and it just could never really get there for me. Maybe it's because it felt. I, I just couldn't really ever care about the characters quite as much as I wanted to. I do think that this movie feels stagey, and there are some movies that I would use that as a like as an argument against it, but I think it works for this movie because of the fact that it is very much the about the life of being on the stage. So I can't complain about it too much. I'll go ahead and give my grade for this one if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
It's a B plus 52.81 for me personally. So just a little bit below where I came in for the French Connection, but above where I had Ghost. It's another case like Ghost and French Connection, where I'm just like, these were your Best Picture nominees and Best Picture winners. I feel like you had better movies in that year. Like, we will get to movies from 1998 at some point, and Saving Private Ryan, that seemed like a really good choice from that year. I've never seen The Prince of Egypt, but everyone that has seems to absolutely love it. I'm not saying that should have won Best Picture, but uh, I know that you're a big Enemy of the State fan. That came out in 1998. 1998 really wasn't a banner year for movies. Now that I'm looking at it, it seemed like they were the Truman Show. The Truman Show would have been a great Best Picture winner. Uh,
Yeah.
it seemed
I
like a
mean,
lot of people were.
I'm all on board with Enemy of the State winning Best Picture.
It seems to me like a lot of people kind of held on to their best stuff until 1999, that next year,
Now,
and
why they would decide to go up against? Man, I don't get it.
because
Why
I
hold it?
think everyone kind of expected Saving Private Ryan to take the top prize, and
Nah,
rightfully
fair.
so.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, in terms of that year, I think Saving Private Ryan and Enemy of the State would be my favorite movies of that year if I had to like think about it. But I also haven't seen all those movies, so my grade. I mean, it's just it's. Would this even make a top 20 in most years? Like, I mean, I just don't think it's like that good. I mean, it's good, and maybe it's more the expectations because it is a Best Picture winner. I just like expected it to be like this grand movie and this like A. But to me, this is a B plus 45.5. Like I have it below Ghost. I have it below Ghost and ahead of Warm Bodies. And like I don't know, I liked Ghost better. Like I just thought it told a better story. Like once you get past like this is about Shakespeare falling in love with someone else, there's not much like substantial things going on for me. So yeah, a B plus 45.5.
I think I liked the overall, just the cast of this. I think it made good use
Sure.
of its
Yeah,
ensemble cast, and I think
that's a
that
good
gave it a
point.
little bit of a leg up over something like Ghost for me personally. Uh, let's go ahead and get into. None of these movies are really like. I think we'll spend a lot more time with The Notebook than we will Shakespeare in Love, but even then, Shakespeare in Love, kind of the big thing is, as far as spoilers go, is that at a point that little piece of shit kid that's like killing mice in the street is like, I saw Shakespeare grabbing on her boobies, and yet everyone kind of finds out that this clearly girl is in fact a girl, and so it's like, all right, I'm shutting down the play. The play government or whatever the hell it is was like, all right, we're not, you can't do your play here. So the other place is like, all right, you can do it here. We're going to squash our beef. The plays must go on. We're going to be in solidarity. And uh, after the most stupid escape of Viola in the little horse carriage with Colin Firth, where she just goes in and then leaves the other side while he's still outside and just like runs to the town or something. That was just a bit strange to me.
To do the play, right? Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like running into the
And
playhouse.
she's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm going on stage as a woman. Who cares? I'm putting it all on the line tonight. And the play goes well. And at the end of the play, Romeo is like, or the queen comes down and says like,
I
we
think
maybe.
this is Judy Dench's like best like work. I just think it's so funny. She's like, Master Kent, will you let Lord Wessex know? Like he's lost the bet. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, she's clearly everyone knows she's a woman, and she's like just playing it off as like, oh, that's clearly a guy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, basically just telling people to shut up. Like, that was a good play. Like, let's all move on. And then what? I guess could this line have won her the Oscar when she's like, "Oh, I well, I." I definitely know what it's like to be a woman in a man's line of work. I was like, yeah, that's a really good quote. I was like, that's a really good line. But yeah, I don't know. I just yeah, it was yeah, keep going, keep going.
It
Sorry.
ends and it was fine. They say their goodbyes as she goes off to it was it if they kept saying Virginia, and I was like, oh, I guess that was a colony in the.
No. Lord Wessex is about to go to the colonies, but he wants a
Oh,
wife
okay.
to take
So it
with
is
him.
Virginia as we know it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But he wants a wife to take with him
Hmm.
to the colonies, and that's why he like he needs the like queen to like sign off on like him having a wife. And then she's like, "Well, it's clear that she doesn't like you." So, she basically gives him like the old like proverbial political middle finger back then, and it's like, "Oh, I guess you're just going to have to go to the colonies without a wife because you're a loser." It's
But
just
then
like, okay.
where does she go?
The queen
No, Gwyneth Paltrow. Where does she go? I need to start watching these movies like the day
to
before.
to live with Shakespeare. I mean, yeah, I mean
No,
it
no, no,
kind of
because
ends.
they say their goodbyes.
Yeah,
Remember? They say their goodbyes, and
you might
then
be right. You might
he
be
starts
right that
he starts writing
she
like
like goes with him.
the queen tells him like, "Hey, write something a little bit more comedic next time."
Oh, so no, you're right. Yeah, so the queen is like playing off that like Master Kent is still like a man, and he like is talking to Viola and is like, take these 50 take this 50 pound to like Shakespeare and tell him to write a comedy next time, and then tell Viola to come out so he can go with Lord Wessex. So like, yeah, I think she still ends up going to like the colonies with Lord Wessex, but basically the queen at and like no subtleties is like, you're a loser, like why am I like I don't care if she's your wife. Like she clearly is like fucking another man. Like you have no like backbone whatsoever. And yeah, it's just her lines. I mean, so you don't like Judy Dench's character? Because to
No,
me
I
the
like her. I just
the
don't
lines are just
understand the
funny. Like it's
taking home the
funny.
Oscar for this. I don't get that at all.
Maybe it's just the way she delivers this stuff. Is she's like,
I think she's better, and obviously, again, competition is important. We don't know as much about the competition of 1998, but I thought she was better in Skyfall in 2012, and I thought she
that's a
gave a
fair
better
point.
performance in that movie.
No, I agree.
She wasn't beating Anne Hathaway for what she does. Anne Hathaway, the great comparison because Anne Hathaway had very limited screen time in Les Miserables in 2012, but you left that movie and you were like, damn, I know she wasn't in the movie for a large chunk of it, but that I Dreamed a Dream scene with Anne Hathaway just brought the house down. And
Well,
that's an Oscar winning just song right there.
if you've ever seen the musical like on stage, like that character is like the character you want to be. Like that character is on for like 10, no, in
Oh, I
terms
was
of
going to
like
say she's a prostitute that
notoriety.
dies alone. I don't really think
No,
that's who I
no,
want to
in
be,
terms
but
of like notoriety and like who like the like attention that you get for playing certain characters, like
you get the
that's
most
the
showy
character.
part as far as that
Yeah.
particular song
Well,
goes.
you
Yeah,
get
I'm
the
with you.
most showy part, and then you just go get to sit behind
Yeah,
the stage
you get
for
to go
like an
eat
hour and a
tacos the
half,
rest of the night. Yeah.
and then you come back as like a ghost like one time, and your job's done.
That's
Like
fair.
you
That's
sing
fair.
you
I was
sing like
confused at
one
first. I'm like,
song.
I don't really think
Yeah.
I want to. That's not a life goal.
I mean, so like good for Judy Dench for like like efficiency rating. Like she came in, she did her thing. Usage.
But
Like
I
she
don't know if it was that efficient because she probably had to sit in the makeup chair for quite some time. Getting those costumes
Yeah,
on
that's
must have been
true. That's a
difficult.
good point. That's a good point. I mean, maybe people just like Queen Elizabeth. It almost seems like people had an infatuation with like Queen Elizabeth in 1990s. So
Yeah,
we just like lived. We like went okay. Like if anyone plays like anyone to do with like British royalty, we're just gonna like give them an
we're
Oscar
gonna
now.
throw Oscars at them. Apparently,
Yeah. So I mean, are you good with Shakespeare in Love? Because I just
I'm
don't think
ready.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
yeah. There's
But
not a lot of substantial like
Notebook
plot
time.
points to talk about. Yeah,
All
Notebook.
right,
Yeah.
so it's obvious that the old man
Okay,
and the old
how
woman,
obvious? Because
like,
within
the
5 minutes,
second
I
I
knew.
saw them, I'm like, I bet that's who that is.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
I
fair.
know that they have different names, but like I feel like, especially the fact that she has this memory loss, it makes sense that he wouldn't be so like, "Hey, I'm your husband." Uh,
Oh, because it would scare the living crap out of her.
exactly, yeah. So he kind of just comes
I mean
across
that's
as
what it is,
this guy
like
that tells
living
her
with dementia.
stories
Yeah.
and tells her the story of kind of the the movie about them getting together and that kind of thing, so that she can remember. And it's
It's a
very,
beautiful
which
plot device. I think it's a great plot
I
device.
think so
It's
too, which is
beautiful.
why I wasn't as like, hey, I knew that was coming. Why is like I thought that it was a good way to tell the story. And also uh I said that I didn't feel the passage of time as much with kind of younger Noah and Allie and a few years later Noah and Allie, but this definitely felt like two people that had lived a life together that was coming to a close, because at the end they do kind of share a dance together, which is the same song that they danced to earlier in the movie, and it's a really really sweet moment. But then her dementia kind of comes back in and she gets
Yeah,
startled,
she snaps out of it.
and
Yeah.
that's the moment that I was the most just like that's life and growing older
It's just
together.
it's just tough to watch because I
Yeah.
not that I know someone who's gone through that, but I imagine if you've seen that like in person and like you've had people in your life who like have those issues, like that is just like a very hard thing to like over like she's basically at one point like yelling like help me, like who is this man who's like holding me, like why is this like stranger like in my like room, and it scares her, and it's a scary scene in terms of that. And I started crying at that scene, and then a little later on there's like another scene between the two that's just like really powerful, I think. But it, I think they do a really good job of like making you invested in the characters, and then you're like, oh, like she might snap out of it, like they might get a miracle, she might regain her memory, and she does for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then it just goes away. And yeah, I think it's a really powerful scene. um is there anything else spoilers wise you
Well,
want to talk
yeah,
about?
we got to
Because
talk about the younger versions of the characters, because
yeah, true.
eventually Allie comes and sees in the paper before, like, while she's like
He
trying on
fixed up
wedding
the
dresses.
plantation house. Yeah, he fixed
Yeah,
up the plantation house.
that he fixed it up with his dad, and his dad has died, and she sees that in the paper, and she's like, I've just got to kind of go and see how he's doing, which
Yeah, it's
is,
a gorgeous house too, by the way.
no,
It
it's
looks,
really
yeah.
nice. And she's like, hey, I gotta go and see how he's doing and catch up. And I'm like, no, you gotta go do other things. Come on now, who you lying to?
Yeah,
Clearly your husband.
just
uh
who did what did she think was gonna happen? Like I just
that was like, I completely understand James Marsden being like, yeah, go do that, but at the same time, like,
well, I just don't think he ever wanted to be like
he
this
didn't want to be that guy.
controlling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
and
I
he
understand.
also
At the end of the
didn't want
day,
to like force her to marry him. Like if she didn't want to marry him, she didn't want to be like, oh, like you
yeah,
have to marry me. Like
at
it
the
just
end
is
of the
what it is.
day, you either trust someone or you don't. And he took that leap, and that didn't really end well for him, because the second she gets over to Noah's place, they start talking, and then and then they spend the rest of the time just sharing memory, going on this little boat together. She finds out that he's been writing her uh that whole year, that
After they split from each other and like didn't see each other for an entire year for 365 days, he wrote 365 letters,
but
which is
the mom hid the letters,
right.
which I thought that once that kind of came out, she kind of turned as a character a little too quickly for me. I got it. I understood why that was the case, but it just felt really sudden that she was just like, yes, go be with Noah. I understand.
Oh no, because you're skipping over like a major plot point as to why she feels the way she does about it. She at in the town of Seabrook that they're in, she also has a guy that she was head over heels for, fell in love with,
But why
and
didn't
he's
they have
still
that
working at
conversation beforehand? I
before. What do you
understood,
mean beforehand?
but before they left,
Yeah, I don't know why the mom
like,
kept
why would
that
you hold
from
on to
her
that and just like
like
yell at your daughter at the beginning of the
for
movie as
20
opposed to
years.
sharing that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that no, I'm with you. Like just share at the beginning like, look, I was in a similar situation you're in. Like now the guy's working at the lumber yard. Like I just but like was that what she was trying to protect him from? Like, oh, I don't want you to like end up with someone who's just going to work at the lumber yard all day. I'm like, but what's wrong with that life if her family has a ton of money? Like her family is wealthy like she doesn't need Lon Hammond of Hammond Cotton to provide for her. Her family is also wealthy. So I don't. Is it just about maintaining wealth? I guess. I mean,
well,
that's
I
what it
think
has
they
to
had
be.
more money. I
The
think it's like,
Hammonds, well,
hey,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we do
Hammond
well,
Cotton
they
had like
do
money,
better.
money. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, from what they made it seem like Lon's family had like generational wealth. Like
Yeah,
no one will be going hungry in this family for the next, 10 generations because of how much money they have. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think that scene with the mom like turns it for you in terms of like, oh, I like the mom a little bit better now, but I don't know, I kind of didn't like her character
it didn't really
because of like all
turn
the
for
stuff
me
that's
just
going on.
because it felt sudden, but
Yeah, that's fair.
it's not a major gripe of mine.
That's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, and then she hands her the letters back over, and of course she starts reading the letters. She like reads the first one, and she's like starts crying. She's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he like wrote these beautiful letters to me," and uh, and then I think the like climax of the movie for the young couple of Noah and Allie is like she has to make that decision between the two. And I do like the scene between her and Lon where Lon's like, "Look, I'm not going to force you to marry me. Like if you want to be with him, like go be with him, but I love you." And I like you said earlier, Mitchell, they could have made Lon out to be like this villain and like this mean person, and he's really not. Like, if anything, he's the best character person in terms of like his attitude towards it all in the movie. Because like at the end of the day, like he's not a bad character. Like I kind of expected him to be a bad character, and he's just not. So I don't know, but yeah,
And
I
then at
just
the end, they just kind of they
they end
die in
up
each
together.
other's arms.
Well, yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna
that's not at
say
the
the last
very end.
scene. Yeah, the very end of the movie. So I guess he knows he's like dying,
Mm,
but so that scene to me is the one that got me to cry because she was like, "Hold my hand as we like pass on," and he's
hmm
like, "I'll always be here," and I'm like, "Oh God," I'm like, I'm gonna start like bawling my eyes out, like dying in each other's arms feels like very like tough scene to watch. But hey, you can put it this way, Mitchell. They didn't have to spend 1 second without the other one in their life. So if you think about it that way, it's very beautiful.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps things up for the Notebook and Shakespeare in Love. Hope that you had a loving and happy February. If you went to the movies this February, you probably didn't love or were happy with too much that came out. Although Brandon, I hear Lisa Frankenstein was decent, and I didn't get to check that one out, but I certainly had a loving and fun time with my Dune popcorn bucket. No, I'm just kidding. Just with the just just with seeing Dune 2 on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to watching that with you. I guess technically today, since this is being released on the final day of February. Now, Brandon, we had a bit of a conversation about
Go
what
Fade.
we're going to do moving forward with some of these random podcasts, but it won't affect our immediate future. Our next one is going to be that February recap where we talk about Dune and then other movies like Argyle and Madam Web and Bob Marley, but probably most of that time is going to be spent with Dune if we're being completely honest with ourselves. Then the Tarantino run begins with Reservoir Dogs and Django Unchained. Then we get Layer Cake and Stardust. And then back to Tarantino with Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2. Brandon, I'm looking forward to getting into some of these Tarantino movies. It'll be fun.
Yeah, part of me just wants to do Tarantino straight through, but I
Let's
get it.
do it. Hey,
Um, I mean,
I'm down. We get
I mean,
Kill Bill.
not to push back Layer Cake and Stardust because I do want to see Layer Cake,
No, Matthew Vaughn
but
released Argyle. He can wait a little bit, making me sit through that
but
trash.
yeah, no fair. But
So then
I mean, I'm
Inglorious
almost
Bastards
for
and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood move up.
okay. No. You had me at Inglorious Bastards. Oh man.
I know you love both of those movies, so I don't have to try too hard to sell you on that. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino.
Those first four movies, I don't know what you're doing with the randomizer or like how you're deciding to pair these two movies together, but those first four movies are kind of like bangers. So
I will
I can't
tell
wait.
you how I grouped those when we do those podcasts because I had they weren't just like random movies that I picked together. They were,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to make sense out of the ones. Obviously, Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2, no duh.
Speak
That's a
for yourself.
softball. But
Yeah,
the rest of them, you will find out why I grouped them together, and I think you'll enjoy it. So
fair
yeah,
enough.
Tarantino, your time is coming, and I'm just looking forward to seeing Dune 2 again. It'll be a lot of fun. And I think you'll enjoy it. And if you're listening to this, that means you like movies. Please go see Dune 2. Okay? We had a terrible 2024 in movies so far this year. January, February, the only good movies that came out were either The Beekeeper or holdover stuff from last year. You know, like if you like Iron Claw, Poor Things, stuff that was still in American Fiction.
Wonka. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
wasn't the biggest fan of Wonka,
No,
but or
I'm just kidding.
Godzilla -1 stuff that was still in theaters from 2023. So please support this movie because if we don't get that third one, I might jump off a cliff. So just you don't
It's
want
already
that. I don't
greenlit.
want that.
We're getting the third one. It's already greenlit.
Yeah, but if it does terribly, then but I don't think it will. I think it'll do great. I have faith in,
I want a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. So go see the movies because I want more.
but Brandon, here's the thing. I also thought that maybe Blade Runner 2049, a previous Denis Villeneuve movie, would do better, and that movie bombed. And so
No, I think people know. I think people have realized how effed up it was that movie bombed.
he's not a
And I know
sleeping
there's
giant anymore.
I know there's some people on Twitter who have the opinion that movie's not good. That
You're
opinion
wrong.
is that opinion's false.
Yeah.
But I will say that he's about to crush, dude. Oh my god. Okay, I'll just save it. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well,
Go fade Rotho. Let's go.
thank you for joining us. If you haven't seen The Notebook or Shakespeare in Love, please go watch them, make your own opinion, and maybe they're classics to you. So we'll talk to you soon.